Good morning, the 16th of February 2025. It's not a bad night in rural Ireland at all. The media's Ukraine. I would prefer to be making less videos because if you think of it, it takes me probably a half an hour to make one video when I get all set up. And if I make two a day, it's nearly an hour. And then if people are to look at them, that's an hour gone. Have people that kind of time? Well, maybe not all have. So I think nearly to reduce them a bit would be no harm. It's not easy. Things are happening so fast that it's very, very difficult to not to make a video. The other thing is, you see that in my videos on the various subjects, they seem to be enjoyed by a lot of people, even though gold and silver is not big in most people's lives. It was years ago, but not now. Still, people are making a contribution and getting a unique opportunity to put their point in, and that's very good, and that's very good. Now, the thing is that the rate of change in the world is so fast, it's hard to keep track of it. And really, I see myself as just trying to make common sense of it. Now, right, I've made predictions on energy and all of that sort of stuff. We can leave that for now. But the one thing that we have become to realise, and that most conservatives realise, is that the entire edifice of socialism, of the American Democratic Party, the BBC, the British government in all its facets except Reform UK, Macron in France, the Irish government, almost 90%, 100%, the Irish government, totally and utterly woke. The Italian government's a bit different, and the efforts, Viktor Orban is different. In Romania, they blocked the president being elected. Now, the thing about it is, we look at Ukraine, what has happened. This is the media's Ukraine. What has happened? Saudi Arabia has been picked by President Trump and President Putin to meet up. In my opinion, not giving any opinion on the goods or bads of it, it's an excellent venue. It's an Arab country. That kind of brings their Arabs sort of seen as the host of these talks between two Christian countries. I think that's important. Saudi Arabia is the keeper of the holy site, Muslim site of Mecca, and I think Medina as well, if I'm not making a mistake. So that, and also it has the climate, it has security, it has lots of things that are needed by the two people. The other big deal, and I'm talking here, folks, in case you don't cop it on, in the talks that are coming between Trump and Putin that were announced today. Another big issue is that Saudi Arabia is one of the countries that can be 100% relied on not to enforce warrants from the International Court of Justice. Isn't that it? The one sits in The Hague. I think that ICC is an International Court of Justice. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's the one that they tried your man Slobodan Milosevic and all these fellas at. So this thing of issuing warrants for state leaders because somebody makes a complaint is a bit harum-scarum in my opinion. But Trump has actually announced sanctions against that court. And they're definitely not going to hold it in any country where there is the slightest risk of Putin being arrested, because Putin won't come. So its writ is being weakened big time. The writ of that court is weakened because it's not been adhered to by countries. It was really meant for the likes of the Nazis and those people. But in any event, whether they're right or wrong, or who's right or wrong, that's the venue. Now, what will happen there? Russia has its terms set down. Will Trump agree? That's the 6 marker. Will he just give it all away to Russia? Russia will demand the Crimea. They have it already. No way are they going to be rooted out of there. The Donbass, the Levant, isn't that the other place? And there's 2 oblasts. Isn't oblasts, you call those regions? They're like counties in Ireland, maybe provinces. And apparently, according to some reports, there are 4 of those that are going to be claimed by Russia, with probably rivers being used as a demarker. and Russia wants that peace and is determined to keep it. And Trump is talking about getting the resources of Ukraine in return for some type of intervention, but most of these resources are in the east, where Russia holds them. And the whole thing is a bit hard to fathom out how these negotiations, but then I would say in my own defence, that's what negotiations are about. That's what negotiations are about, actually. So anyway, what we see is the consternation of Europe, the weakness of Europe. And the fact is that despite all the efforts of the Biden administration, I'm just adjusting this, America is still a strong country. And I don't accept this thing that it's in terminal decline. It's only in terminal decline if it is let go to hell, essentially. Now, the Roman Empire fell into disrepute. Maybe it wasn't preventable. I don't know. If they had to abolish slavery and lots of things like that, it might have improved. You look at what happened in the United States when they abolished slavery. It didn't go downhill, it got stronger. It got stronger without it. And there's a book written on the subject of slavery in Rome, and author claims that it destroyed Rome because you couldn't earn a living. The slaves were all had to do what you wanted to do. So that's an idea. Was it preventable, the decline of the Roman Empire? We'll not go there too much, folks. But we know the British Empire overreached. It reached out too far, and it eventually more or less collapsed under its own weight, and the Soviet Empire did the same. I'm not just convinced that the United States Empire is in the same bracket. Why are millions and billions of people trying to run into it? Why is it such a magnet? And I think that's contained, and the answer is contained in the speech by J.D. Vance, all about freedom and the efforts of the European Union to take away our freedom. And he gives examples. We have Enoch Burke in Ireland. Those are the empires, I think, that more mirror the former empires that collapsed. I think an empire or a big country like the United States that sticks to the principles of freedom and democracy has a lot going for it even yet. Anyway, the point I'm making, folks, is the media. I want to get to the media. We see that the EU are delinquent. Macron is trying to meet with Schulz. He should be out in his ear, and probably, and trying to get an act together. And Ursula von der Leyen, a silly German woman, is now talking about building up an EU army. Oh, an army. Well, there's some chance of that. There is some chance of getting the armies of Europe to sing on the same hymn sheet. And because of people like myself, and I take a lot of abuse for it, we are going to make bloody sure that Paddy the Irishman is going to stay out of the wars. Not one Irishman will fire a shot at a Russian. Whether they like it or whether they don't, we're not getting down in the trenches. And as I say, the reason Trump is there, the reason Vance is there, and all his people all around him, where he got a roasting the first time but not the second time, is the people of America. No, they are expected to carry the can. I think my analogy, is that the word you say, of a young lad growing up in Arkansas or Kansas facing machine guns on a Europe beach. That day is over, and I would strongly say to Americans, have nothing to do with us in Europe. Let us go to hell, because we don't deserve it. We don't deserve it. When people like me are persecuted, when people like Enoch Burke are persecuted. In any event, on 9 minutes, we now go to the media, the subject of my video. It was, Ukraine will win, CNN, Ukraine will win. The ladies of The View, Ukraine will win. Anthony Blinken, Ukraine will win. Jade Sullivan, Ukraine will win. Joe Biden, Ukraine's not going to lose. Ukraine's going to win. Boris Johnson, Ukraine will win. The other fella, Keir Starmer, Ukraine will win. Jeremy Hunt, Ukraine will win. Everyone except Nigel Farage and his people from UK, Ukraine will win. The lefties in Scotland, Ukraine will win. Nicola Sturgeon, Ukraine will win. Ireland, Harris, we can't let Russia win. Micheál Martin, Russia can't be allowed to win. There was lorry loads of aid went out from Ireland to help the people because the Irish people thought they were being invaded in the ordinary sense. Whereas in fact that was not the truth at all. What happened with the invasion was only another step in the fight back by Russia against the oppression of what was being done by America, the deep state in Europe and everywhere else. So they are in some shock. I have to admire Vance. You know, and I'm a tough enough nut, I'd find it hard to go down and sit down in a social context with Ursula von der Leyen, and that's what he did. After the speech he gave, in which he says, folks, I'm throwing you under a bus. Under the bus with you. And he could sit down then and drink tea with them or coffee. I get it very hard to do it, but it has to be done because there's no other way out. What would have to be done to placate the Europeans is abuse and death and destruction by Americans who have no actor part. And Trump constantly makes the point that Ukraine is an ocean away, thousands of miles away, not near us at all. It's Europe's problem. And America's not carrying the can anymore. But it's this constant lying by the media. Ukraine will win. Ukraine will win. Anchors, as they call them, permanent people giving out the news on all these news channels, NBC, and all these, and even on YouTube and everything else. Russia's beaten. And many videos did flash up in front of me. Putin is about to collapse. Russia's about to collapse. About to collapse. Everywhere's about to collapse. No word about them thinking of cancelling the elections in England, the council elections. No word about them, the courts intervening in the democratic process in Romania. All selective left-wing deep state determined rascals. And now, at this stage, now in February 2025, they finally realise that they have nothing more left. There's no fight left in the Ukrainians. There's nothing left. They're all dead and buried in the graveyards. Poor things. And how long will it take the Irish voter? They voted Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin and Labour. And those that didn't vote would vote if they had enough mojo to move it, to go down to the local school. That's the reality. That's the reality. There was one person up in Monaghan owed me a favour. I arranged for his transport to bring him into the school in the west of County Monaghan, and he went in and he voted for me in the presence of a person that brought him in. He had eyesight difficulties, but not too bad, but enough to get my man to vote, make sure it was my vote. And then when he was turned around to bring him home, he stopped. No, wait. There's a whole lot of numbers down here. I have to continue. But this fella couldn't bring himself in to vote for his favourite candidate. He voted for me because he owed me a favour, and I got him transport. And then he went on to vote number 2 for Niamh Smith. So when I got eliminated, his number 2 was the number 1 for Niamh Smith. And me helping to bring him in. Don't tell me that. They would vote for them. But they're all wrong. This is the point. They're all wrong. They're all going to see now that they're wrong, that they were lied to. They're not going to learn from it in Ireland because paddy tends to be quite thick, except a small amount of us which aren't. But worldwide, the left-wing woke media of every hue and cry are now forced to admit the Ukraine is gone. And they'll turn their attention to Trump and say, oh, he gave it away. They'll blame Trump. And I cannot understand the comments that are there about Trump. What they're saying is that Biden handed Trump the Ukraine and he could have washed his hands of it. How could he wash his hands of it? An American president inherits the major wars of the world. He has to have some policy. How could he just say, you just go on? They wanted him to keep paying for it. They wanted him to keep making the weapons for it. And they wanted him to support NATO, put in twice the amount of everyone else to support NATO as well. And ultimately, if they decided that NATO was going to go in and some kind of a peacekeeping force in Ukraine and maybe Russia opened fire on them, they wanted Trump to supply the troops and the chaps from Arkansas and Kansas to collect the bullets and be killed and come home in coffins. That's what they wanted. Trump had no option only to try and see what could be done. They wanted to carry it on infinitely. And the more they tried to bully the Russians, the more they bullied us. And the more they could push their woke agenda, the more they could imprison people for calling boys him, and the more they could jail people for praying in their own homes because their home happened to be within 200 yards of an abortion clinic. What has to be drawn from this, and the lesson that has to be learned, is that the whole media is nothing more than a propaganda vehicle for this ideology. Nothing more than a propaganda vehicle for this ideology. And they haven't one column in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Irish Times, maybe a little the Irish Times, but definitely not in the American papers, saying, hold on, Mr. Trump, you pulled out the Paris Climate Accord, you're going to destroy the climate. We're all going to be roasted. Not one of them done it. So they must have known damn well the whole thing was a hoax from the start. There might be a wee bit with the likes of Mary Carr in the Sunday Mail in Ireland, or there might be still a little bit. That's the reality. J.D. Vance told them where he thought of Greta Thunberg. We had to listen to her because we had to put up with that one. Made little of her. Now you can put up with Elon Musk. See, their edifice has been damaged severely. Trump is not taking ownership of the Ukraine. He's doing what it's his duty to do, to apply the mandate he received of the American people to try and negotiate a peace with Putin. Zelensky's pulling his hair out. Where's his money he got going? How does he account for the good money he got? He can't. It's gone. It's missing. He doesn't know where it is. So that was another racket. How much of that has he in his account? How much has all the people of these leaders in Ukraine got stashed away? Then they have the cheek to lecture to us. And we see Boris Johnson now. What's he saying? Is he making any statement? Is Anthony Blinken making any statement? Their security pass has been pulled away. Jake Sullivan. They're the emperor with no clothes. As I think it's Warren Buffett said, when you see people swimming in the sea out on a lovely day, you don't know who is wearing clothes or swimsuits or trunks or whatever. But if the tide goes out or if the water suddenly runs out, you can see who's naked and who isn't. And what's happening now is the tide has gone suddenly out and here they are naked. Naked as a jaybird, a scalded bird, a young bird in a nest. That's the hard reality. I said this from the word go. You have to say to me, I predicted from the word go Russia was going to win this. I predicted a war of attrition. A war of attrition. I predicted this war. I was right about it all the time. Now it's my turn to come up and say what's going to happen. Will Trump give it all away? I think so. I think he'll keep bits here and there and he'll walk away. It's a bit like, it's a bit like something in your life that's just too much bother. Maybe you buy an antique car and you're all enthusiastic about it, and it's not really your main car, but then it's all rusted and it starts giving you trouble, and you bring it somewhere to a wedding and it lets you down, and eventually you get to the stage you're sick of it. Been there, done that, flog it off, get rid of it. Or maybe a farmer has a good farm and he's a little outlying bit and it's full of trouble, there's no water on it, he has to put water on it, there's this, that and the other. He's very enthusiastic about it when he's young, but then as time goes on, he just doesn't have the mojo for it anymore. And so this is what is happening in America. Trump has plans for the United States, America first. They don't include any traditional responsibility for the rest of the world as far as he is concerned. And J.D. Vance, they can grow up and go to hell. As long as America has them under the wing and is minding them, they're going to push their old woke junk and their old stupidity, and they're going to elect a stupid leader like Ursula von der Leyen and have the Germans running my life here in Ireland and destroying my environment with their stupid renewable energy, green energy junk. And they're going to keep doing that. So it's time to pull the rug from under them. What's happened now, Trump has pulled the rug from under them. We're doing our thing. He'll probably make a settlement. But there is a chance, and it's very hard to actually quantify it, there is a chance that he won't agree to Putin's terms. He just mightn't. He mightn't. Putin's going to be very, very tough in this battle. He's going to be very tough. Oh, you see, and Trump is a thick man too. However, Putin might yield a bit here and there. He might yield a wee bit and they might come up to something. There'll be no membership of NATO for Ukraine. Trump has already said that. Get out and forget about it. Forget about it. You're not getting NATO having a say in Ukraine. If American or European NATO troops or non-NATO European troops enter the territory of Ukraine, Putin, after all he's done and what he's said, will mow them out of it with machine guns. He'll mow the Polish, the Germans, the British, the Spanish, and any Irish that's there. And if there's Americans there too, but there won't be any Americans. He'll mow them out of it. He'll shoot 10 out of every 100 and tell them, if you're not gone by Tuesday evening, we'll mow another 10. And if you're not gone, we'll mow out another 10. That's what he's going to do, and I would do the same. They think they're going to come in there, oh, well, we're peacekeepers now. I think Trump is wise enough to know that that's the situation. Putin has won the war. He had won it a year and a half ago. He had won it. It just took it very difficult for the thickos in the EU, in the Irish government, and in the American Democratic Party to realise this. There's no doubt. Somebody said to me, are you sure now that Trump and that Vance are not the Antichrist? You know, it was always said that the Lord would come again and there'd be righteousness in the world. Are you sure he's not the Antichrist? I have to say I don't think so. I think Vance's speech had the full endorsement of President Trump, and it has the endorsement of many around him. And you see people on there with YouTube videos given out about his men, Kellogg and all this, and saying they're no good and they're no good and that. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's a combined effort by the American government led by Trump, and they are set on the course I'm telling you. What good is the Ukraine to anybody? As far as I'm concerned, it might as well be let go. I would hope that if the Russians are running it, or half running it, that they'll start farming in it, or they'll allow farming and let me buy a nice little bit of meal and let bread and stuff like that be produced there. That's all we ever wanted in the West, and it's all I ever wanted. But I don't know will that happen. And if the rump state that's left is given a go, well, maybe it'll do that. There is a big danger, folks, and I'm going to sign off now. It's a long video. I'm very sorry. I hate these long videos. There's a big danger that Putin will head to Odessa and take several big important parts of the remainder of Ukraine. Odessa was Russian. That's where the Ukrainians, Nazis killed the Russian people within 12 years of now, only back a few years. That's the problem. And that's where maybe it will become difficult for Trump when they march on Odessa. But I don't see what he can do. I think he'll try and cobble together a few sticky plasters here and there and get rid of it. Will the woke West media manage to apply blame to Trump? How will they demonise him? I don't think it's going to work. And may I just say before I go, my videos here set out essentially to destroy the green energy racket, to destroy the windmills that destroyed my area here. And I think I've succeeded quite well. People like myself can influence. And I've given you a very, very good assessment of the situation. And I'm not doing it for it's not wasted time. I'm not doing it to show off. I'm doing it to change the minds of the people. And see what happens when you let a ferret into the henhouse. And that's the story. Whether the Irish people who voted Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, Sinn Féin, whether they like it or whether they don't, no matter what you think or what flags you fly, Ukraine is beaten hands down by Russia. And there's nobody fit to beat them. Their economy is about the size of Italy. That's what they tell us. I think it's a bit better. It's about the size of Italy. And yet when it comes to the rifles and the artillery and the bombs and the aircraft, it's debatable that nobody can beat them, including the United States. Now, somebody posted there that about the British Army, that they were never beaten and all that. That hit me quick. I didn't know what they meant by that. They were never beaten. Actually, they were lost in India, didn't they? And the Suez Canal. They were going to go to war on the Suez Canal, and the Americans told them back down. I can't see where this wonderful British Army is. I'm a loss with that one. I think they were beaten. I think they were beaten several times. And they'd been beaten by the Germans in the Second World War, were it not for the Americans and the Russians. I don't think Britain, I think they're an army. They're there. They're not bad fighters, and if they're on your side, they'll fight fairly tough. Not enough of them. Fit them all in a football stadium. Anyway, that's a side issue. Russia has won the war. And there is nobody living other than Russia that's going to decide the future of Ukraine. Nobody. I don't believe that Russia is going to move on and capture other countries. But I do suspect it could take Odessa. I think it might take the big city of Odessa. If for no other reason than that's the city where the Ukrainian Nazis, the Ukrainian Russian haters, burnt and killed an awful lot of Russian people for merely protesting that they wanted to speak their own language and have their children taught Russian in school. Good luck. Comment on the leads and we'll see you back. 28 minutes. Bit too long, but still a good video. Goodbye. Thank you very much.